All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. This is John McDougall with Murder by the Book, and we're going to give everybody just a couple of seconds to come find us from their various corners of the internet before we get started. But until we go and have some viewers, I'm going to do a couple of really quick, brief store announcements. So first up, I wanted to mention, in case you were not aware, we are open again for browsing. We opened up on October 31st for Halloween. We figured that would be a cool, appropriate day to reopen the store. So if you want to come in and browse the shelves and get some recommendations in person, sorry, my cats are freaking out. Okay. So if you want to come in and get some recommendations in person, we would love to see you. We are still limiting it to 6 people in the store at a time and asking that you wear masks. If you are not getting out and about, you can always do curbside pickup, or you can order at murderbooks.com. Wanted to say, if you're watching this on Facebook, we haven't had any issues lately, but we do periodically sometimes get some spam comments that pop up. They'll ask you to click away from the video to input your credit card information to watch it. Don't do that. You're watching the event already. You don't have to click away to do that. I'll block any of them that pop up, just so I want to make sure everybody's aware of that and they're not clicking on them. Also wanted to mention that we have relaunched our Bonfire t-shirt campaign for our famous detective shirts. I think that Monday is the last day to order those to get them in time for Independent Bookstore Day. Independent Bookstore Day is April 24th, and this year we're super excited. The Mystery Writers of America have asked us to host a panel for all of this year's best novel nominations. So that'll be a cool virtual event on that day. We'll have some more details for that soon. Also wanted to mention, we're going to bring Lee and Helen out in a second, but if you wanted to pre-order copies of Helen's book, Bring Your Baggage and Don't Pack Light, she's going to be signing books for us later this year, so we'll drop some links to that. And she has also graciously offered to buy anyone who asks, or the person who asks the question that sends her and Lee / Rick off on the best tangent will get a copy of one of his books. So I'm going to bring them out and get us started this evening. So we are going to start with Helen Ellis. How are you tonight, Helen? I'm so excited that we're going to do this. So for everybody who's watching, the reason why I discovered the Poppy Harmon books is because Helen had sent me a text and said, "Hey, I'm reading these. These are great. Have you read them?" And I hadn't, so I picked up the first one, absolutely fell in love with it. And then when I realized that there was a new one coming out, I sent Helen a text and said, "Hey, there's a new Poppy Harmon book coming out. Do you want to do a virtual event?" She's like, "Absolutely. Let's do it." So I'm so excited. Tonight's going to be a blast. So to officially introduce her, Helen Ellis is the author of Southern Lady Code, American Housewife, and Eating the Cheshire Cat. Raised in Alabama, she lives with her husband in New York City, and you can find her on Twitter at What I Do All Day, and on Instagram as Helen Ellis Author. And her new book, Bring Your Baggage and Don't Pack Light, will be out on July 13th later this year. And so now we're going to bring Lee Hollis out. How are you tonight?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. It's so good to see you again.
I know. Good to see you, John.
So we did an event for everybody watching. You can scroll back through the store's YouTube channel. We did a great event over the summer. It was either summer or fall. I can't remember because time means nothing anymore. But we did a road trip event with Kensington, and our Houston stop theme was Sleuths of a Certain Age, and we were so excited to include Lee with us on that one, so you can definitely check that out. But tonight we are here to talk about Poppy Harmon and the Pillow Talk Killer. So Lee Hollis is the pen name for Rick Copp. He's the author of the Desert Flowers Mysteries and the Mayan and Sandra Mystery Series. He's also the co-author of the Hayley Powell Food and Cocktail Mysteries with his sister, Holly Simason. A veteran Hollywood screenwriter, he is the co-writer of the Brady Bunch Movie and has written for numerous television series, including The Golden Girls, Wings, Scooby-Doo, Teen Titans, and Barbershop. He also produces, writes, and stars in the hit web series Where the Bears Are. He lives in Palm Springs, California, and can be found at leehollismysteries.com. As I mentioned, the new one, Poppy Harmon and the Pillow Talk Killer, is the third in the series. So I'm going to let these two start chatting. But if anybody has any questions for Helen or Lee, please pop those in the comments either on Facebook or YouTube. And as we said, whoever asks the question that sends them off on the best tangent will get a copy of one of Lee's books. So I'm going to let you guys get to it. I'm going to be enjoying and laughing from behind the scenes, and I will see you in just a little bit.
Thank you.
Rick!
Hi, Helen.
I'm so excited. So I have to tell you how we are together now.
Okay,
so
good.
I am sitting in my apartment in New York City, And I have been in this apartment since March 13th.
Okay.
I have not been off this island in a year. And the last place I was Palm Springs.
Oh, no, really?
I have never been to Palm Springs. And one of the thrills of being a writer is sometimes you get invited to go fun places. And the Literary Society of the Desert, which is all women, I think over the age of 65, 300 of them invited me to come to Palm Springs. And I said, yes, please. And the week I was there, Coachella shut down. Indian Hills tennis shut down. Everything was shutting down, but not the Ladies Society of the Desert. They were all saying, "We're 80. What do we
I was
care?
going to say, you said 65. That's barely legal out here.
We're having a lunch. It's at the country club. It's open air. What does it matter?" So on that trip, I fell in love with Palm Springs. I'd never been, and I went early just to experience it. So I went on many a tour of the mid-century homes, and what I love about, one of the things I love about the new book is that Poppy moves into Ava Gardner's prior home. So, we saw Doris Day's house and Elizabeth Taylor's house, and it was just the most magical place outside of New Orleans or New York City that I've ever been. And so when I made it out of there in one piece on a red-eye flight back to New York a year ago and was trapped in New York, the hot zone, I said, I need something comfortable and I want to go back to Palm Springs. And I called John, and I'm just like, that's the great thing about cozies is, you sometimes read a cozy for where it happens or who you're with. And I said, do you know any cozies in Palm Springs? And he didn't. So I began to Google, and yours is the only one I could find.
Oh, really?
And so I started with the audiobook of Poppy Harmon Investigates. And again, this was a year ago. So I have such memories of falling in love with Poppy and her friends, Iris and Violet, while ironing and playing online poker and listening to the audiobook. So it's such a thrill to meet you. And I've told you how I sort of met and fell in love with Poppy. And you tell me how Poppy and Palm Springs, came to you as a character in a set and a setting. How did it happen?
Well, I had started writing the Hayley Powell series with my sister, and those mysteries are set in Bar Harbor, Maine, which is my hometown. It's where I was born and I grew up. And so when my editor at Kensington came to me and he said, I'd love to, since I was a writer on the Golden Girls way back when I was a...
We're going to get into that.
And he said, we should do a Golden Girls type mystery series. And there was no question in my mind that I wanted to set it in Palm Springs because it was where I lived and I could, write what you know. So
yes.
I've lived here now for 11 years. And so that's how I immediately knew I wanted to set it in Palm Springs. And the character of Poppy is, because I had written in Hollywood for so many years, I had done this web series Where the Bears Are, and I'm actually in it. And we cast this actress to play my mother. And she had been in like every TV show from Lost in Space to Batman to like in the 60s and 70s. Her name was Francine York. And sadly, she passed away recently. But and I just loved her. She was regal and fun, but yet retired and doing all these fabulous things. And I thought, oh my God, she would make a great character. So I kind of based the character on her. Of course, her husband did leave her penniless, and
that was Debbie Reynolds' husband.
Right, exactly. There's a lot of real life stuff that drew from.
She reminds me of a little bit too. She reminds me a little bit of a young Debbie Reynolds.
And so that's how the character was born. And then her two best friends, Iris and Violet, are actually based on two women that I met out here in Palm Springs since I've been living here. And another one, sadly, and Helen and Brigitte. Helen and Brigitte. And they were I would have them over for dinner, and I'd have my friends over. And there's another cozy author out here called M.V. Byrne, who writes the Isabel Puddle series. Those are set in Michigan. But he and I are friends, and we would invite these ladies over for dinner all the time. They were just the loveliest ladies. And Brigida is still with us, and she's living in Munich. She's back in Munich now.
She's Iris. She's
Iris,
yeah.
definitely. And I mean, there's no even making anything up. I just listen to her, and I just, she comes alive when I'm writing. And she, and she reads every book. I send her every book in Munich, and she hasn't picked up on the fact that she can come across as a little gruff, because that's just the way she is.
But that's the beauty of an Iris character, because she's sort of like a B. Arthur Golden Girls character.
Exactly.
And when I sell this book, I say it's Golden Girls meets Charlie's Angels. That's the way I sell it. But I love Iris so much because she does, sort of say it like it is. But we all need a friend like that who, when the movers are dropping your television, will step in and bark their orders, or who will really take up for you. There's a wonderful moment where, Iris has been fooled by something, and where Violet has been fooled, and Iris steps in and really rallies to her defense. And I think it's those hard nuts when they crack that bring the most love out of us for them. They're terrific characters. And so let me ask you about the Desert Flower Detective Agency. So we've got Poppy, Iris, and Violet, all flowers. Tell me how the Desert Flower Detective Agency was born.
Well, the name, as the writer, the name came from across the road from me is a condo complex called the Desert Flowers. So I see it every day when I go out for my morning hike. There it is, the Desert Flowers. So that was pretty much right in my face. But in terms of in the books, I'm a child of television. You mentioned Charlie's Angels. I can tell you every episode by number. I was such a fanatic about that show. And
my husband still has the Playboy with Farrah
Farrah. Absolutely.
I'm gonna keep it. That tape.
Look, this is my coffee mug right here. I've got these.
I love it. So which one are you? Which of the three are you?
I would say I was probably the Kate Jackson. Yeah.
I wanted to be not Farrah. Who's the middle one?
Jacqueline Smith. Yeah.
That's all I want was her hair and that red bikini. That's all I want.
Yeah, I know. I was a child. I watched Kate Jackson on the show called The Rookies, which nobody remembers. She played a nurse.
Yes.
That's why I started watching Charlie's Angels. I came over when it was canceled, and she started.
Oh, and then she did, what was it, The Scarecrow?
Scarecrow, Mrs. King. Oh God, I loved all her shows. But anyway, so I borrowed from another show, Remington Steele, from the 19th.
Love it.
And but instead of taking the sexist angle, where no one would hire the woman in that show because she was a woman, that I don't feel that's relevant today. It's but there is ageism. There's a lot of ageism. So I decided, since they couldn't, they opened up their detective agency, the Desert Flowers, and people are reticent about hiring women of a certain age. They don't think they're tough enough or something. Yeah. And it's crazy, which is the most ridiculous thing.
Oh, yeah.
And so they have to bring in this actor who's dating one of their daughters, and he becomes Matt Flowers, the face of the agency. But they're doing all the work, and actually, as I started writing more and more books, Matt became more just part of the family. He wasn't, he was just kind of more the assistant than anything else. So the Remington Steele thing's kind of, faded away a little bit.
I loved Matt more in this book than in any of the three. He comes off in the first book as sort of, arrogant or entitled, and by this book, you just love him. You're on his side. He does so many, he gets a wonderful tattoo, which I will not reveal. And he really, for sort of a dumb actor, because he's sort of a dumb actor.
Right.
What you've set up so well as a writer for his character is that he is really good at thinking on his feet.
He learns. Yeah.
He's just fantastic. And you see the genuine respect that he has for the women and vice versa. But tell me about Wyatt.
It's so funny. I just, Wyatt is not based on anybody. I just wanted a way for them to get information that wasn't too complicated. So I came up with Violet's 12-year-old grandson who's like really good with computers, but and always goes right up to the line where he might be breaking the law by hacking into places he shouldn't be hacking into. And he was just kind of this, he wasn't even supposed to be a regular in the books, but when my editor read the first book, he was like, I love Wyatt. And it surprised me so much because I'd totally forgotten about him. He was like in 1 or 2 scenes in the opening book. So now I have to include him in every book because he's so... And actually, yeah, I mean, actually, in this new book I just handed in, it's coming out next week, he actually goes on a mission with Poppy.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think about Wyatt in this book in particular because so many of the clues in this book, well, tell us a little bit about the plot of this book, and then I'll get to my sort of Wyatt and questions. Tell me what's happening in this book.
This actually was my favorite book to write of the 3 because I wanted to include flashbacks to the 1980s and when Poppy was at the peak of her acting career. She was starring in the show called Jack Colt PI, where she played the secretary to this Magnum type,
Yes, delicious.
And she so I wanted to go back there. I wanted to explore that because I mean I started working in Hollywood in 1988, and so just a few years passed when I set these scenes, and so I wanted to have a case where that there would be a reason to do that. So basically, Poppy and the Desert Flowers gang, they go there's a film company shooting a reboot of Palm Springs Weekend, that 1960s romantic comedy with Troy Donahue and Connie Stevens, and the current star of the reboot for Netflix is this young actress Danica Delgado, and someone's stalking her, and they go onto the set to look after and find out who this stalker is, but subsequently she winds up dead, and the circumstances remind Poppy of a series of murders that happened back in the 1980s when she was a young starlet. And so is the killer back, or is this a copycat, or what is this? And that sets the train in motion of what happened.
I did not know who did it. I did not know, but I know who I wanted to have done it. And speaking of, clearly you know what you are talking about when it comes to this sort of not backstage, but movie set scenario. Again, as a cozy reader, what I love and what keeps me coming back to a series is the character and then the sort of situations they get into. And for me with this book, the mystery was compelling, but what was more compelling was that you really took on the Me Too movement. There was clearly sort of a Harvey Weinstein producer. There was a Ronan Farrow type reporter.
You picked up on that.
Thank you. There was who else? There was I felt a Giselle Maxwell type character.
Yes.
Very much an enabler. And what I loved about it was I think you showed it for what it was, but you did show actresses taking some steps, when faced with that kind of harassment. What made you have the nerve to take it on? Why did you feel compelled to do it?
Well, it's something I've witnessed. It's something I've seen, it's something I just, as a young person in my 20s, it was very difficult to be in Hollywood working and have the strength to say something when you would see overt sexism and bad behavior in general. And I had a few bosses who were just awful and treated people awful. And it was a period where I looked around and nobody was standing up or saying anything, and everybody wanted that paycheck, and me included. And so I was so happy when the dam broke in Hollywood and actresses started to speak up. And so in my own way, I wanted to do something because I had gone through that period. I wanted to say something in a cozy mystery, you just want everybody to have fun and feel good and have a good time. But
we do.
But I thought this might be an opportunity to explore a little bit, especially since my main character came from that.
Yeah. I think he is experiencing so much of what, I'm 50.
Oh gosh.
So I've been,
Right.
I've certainly experienced my fair share of harassment, in various jobs, to put it lightly. And I think it's so interesting to have Poppy see young women experiencing what she experienced and trying to step in and being a good example. And still, you see her try to step in many situations. And the one young actress say, no, I've got to roll with it. And you do understand. But my question, what you also did really well was, is it Greta who is who's the assistant to Hal?
Yeah, the producer, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Greta, the producer. And what you did really well was you showed her enabling and covering up. What is it? Why you worked in the business, you must have seen that. Why does she do it?
I think it's Hollywood's a lot like Washington. People crave power and success and money and all of the accoutrements that come with Hollywood success, and so they make a decision to accept that kind of behavior, to just kind of roll with it. And we'd be naive to think it still doesn't go on today, even with
it does.
But it just kind of, as a man, I felt I didn't really, in terms of that specific abuse, I couldn't really speak to it, but I could through my character, because that was her experience. And she was, she was in Hollywood in a time when it was at its peak in the 80s, with, Dynasty and all those shows and, the glamour. And
yes, I'm in my Dynasty blouse for you.
Oh.
Because I happened to start, just on the side, I, in the 80s, grew up in Alabama, so I was not allowed to watch quite a bit. And so I was not allowed to watch Dynasty or Dallas or Knots Landing or anything like that. So for whatever reason, I started watching it last week.
It's very campy.
I'm obsessed. And we just watched an episode where, Fallon is kissing her brother.
Yeah.
My husband is horrified. I'm like, it was the 80s.
Yeah, it was the 80s.
She didn't know. But I love, you talk about what you were so fond of doing with this book was being able to show flashback. And you actually talked about, the rivalry with Joan Collins and
Linda Evans.
Linda.
Yeah.
Do you have memories of that kind of like behind the scenes gossip when it comes to these 80s dramas that Poppy was involved in?
Yeah, all of the all of the references are based on reality. Although Poppy and her show were fictional completely, I wanted everything else around them in the Hollywood world to be reflective of that time and to be accurate. So there were times where there was tension on the set between Linda Evans and Joan Collins, and even when I was starting on the Golden Girls, there was some friction between B. Arthur and Betty White.
Go on. Go on.
Yeah.
Who was going to wear the longer sweater? What?
It was, from what I recall, it was over and they were both big animal rights activists, and something had happened at one of the things where I don't really know the specifics, but there was tension between them. It didn't spill over onto the set, but we all knew it was going on, but it was so easy to draw from those days when I just witnessed, the Golden Girls behaved so professional. They were wonderful. I worked on other shows where the actors were not,
So tell me, you do not have to name a name.
Yeah.
You want to. Just good me.
Well,
what is the worst thing you ever saw someone do on a set?
Okay. I saw an actor. I saw him storm off the set and leave everybody hanging. And nobody knew what to do, and then everybody had to go home for the day, and hundreds of thousands of dollars were lost. And so,
Why did he storm off?
It was over. It was over something so slight and nothing. It was, you know, he was upset about having. I know what it was. We were in Canada, and we were shooting a pilot for CBS, and he found out that we were going to have to shoot more scenes in Los Angeles because of the weather, and it had been my decision to. Because I said, it's always raining in Vancouver. We can't risk it raining when we need these outdoor scenes, so we need to shoot back in Los Angeles. And he was very upset because he thought we were going to finish the whole thing, and he stormed off. But then we got back to LA, and it rained every day in LA for like the first time in 20 years. You know?
I like that. I do appreciate that you pulled an example from a man and
Yes,
an actor,
man, yes.
and not a diva. And what, you know, can you remember a moment just to go?
And he was very big star, but I won't say.
You'll send me afterwards. You'll send me.
Yeah, I'll tell you afterwards. Yeah.
What?
He's still around.
Googling Vancouver pilot.
He is still around.
I love it. That's what I keep doing with this dynasty. Is I keep like looking up the male actors, you know, saying what do they look like?
I'll give you
now?
a big clue. I mean, you just have to look me up, and you could look it up. But there were two other actors in the pilot. The pilot never went on.
Okay.
Never got on the air, but it got shot. And there were two other actors who went on to be very huge stars, who are big stars today. And I was very proud because I fought for her, the actress, Kaylee Cuoco from The Big Bang Theory.
Oh.
That was one of her first roles. She played the teenage daughter. And then Anthony Anderson from Blackish.
Oh my gosh.
He played a gay ex-con who was helping out the family detective agency.
I love it. And I love, you know, I have to give it, Kayla, just on another tangent. You know, have you seen The Flight Attendant?
I loved it.
Absolutely. I loved it.
Yeah. I actually read his book afterward. I thought it was
yes, I love Chris Bajalian. Love his books. And I love that she, as an actress coming off of The Big Bang Theory, bought that book and produced it. You know, good for, you know, I just think that's so great to see that kind of power from women behind the set. And I think about, you know, as I was just imagining having to Google who this person is, back to Wyatt. And with this book, so many clues come from social media. You know, all the actors on the set, they're Instagramming, and you know, Wyatt and Poppy herself sort of learn how to track people through their Instagram. And before we met, I was, you know, Googling you a little bit. You are not that present on social media.
No.
So I want to know. You're talking to a woman who got a cell phone in 2016. So we're somewhat close. Why do you keep to yourself in that way?
I don't know. I mean, it's not like I'm quiet or private, you know. But my friends get upset with me because every night at 6 o'clock, I put my phone in my bedroom and go downstairs and watch TV, and I don't have the phone around, so people can't reach me. Now they figured that they can use Alexa. You know, the Alexa, they can call me through that.
I will allow that in my house because I will not allow another woman's name to be said more than my own in my own home.
Exactly right. But and I am on Facebook, and I'll post on Facebook every now and then. But yeah, Twitter and Instagram, I have accounts, and you know, I did this web show that had a following, so I have a lot of followers, but I never post. I never do anything. Facebook, I do though, more. You know,
I don't do Facebook. I don't do Facebook. I used to do Twitter. That's sort of how I got my writing life back, was through Twitter. And I don't really do that anymore. But I love Instagram because it's I feel like it's sort of for the most part, a happy place.
Yeah, that was my problem with Twitter. It's a little toxic, you know. It can get a little, you know, in the weeds in that way. But my sister Holly, who's Lee, I'm Hollis. Those are our middle names.
Yes.
She's on Instagram all the time with her cooking and recipes, and she likes to do that. You know.
Well, see, that makes me think. It's so funny. And I have 2 pages. I have 2 pages of questions, and I haven't even looked at my questions because this makes me want to know, as a writer and as a reader, what is it like to write with your sister, to write with a partner? Did you start writing mysteries as a team and then went on your own, or how did that happen?
Well, early on in my career, I had many writing partners. I had a writing partner he's now like the president of the Writers Guild here in LA. And then I wrote the Brady Bunch movie with a partner.
Which I love.
Oh, thanks. She and I went on to write other stuff together. And I'd always worked with partners, but I'd written, when I would write books, and I did a few books under my own name a long time ago, and I just did them on my own. But it was my editor at Kensington who had met my sister once, and he really liked her. She's very, let's put it this way, I'm the quiet one of the two.
Me too.
Because she's very loud and boisterous and fun.
She's a character.
He goes, you should, and she was literally writing a column for our local paper with recipes. And so he said, oh, you should do a mystery book, not even thinking I would do it with her.
Yeah.
But I thought, based on her, and I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, it would be great to bring her in to do the columns if I'm doing it about a food columnist. And so my sister, and she won an award in Maine, for her columns and stuff. But, she's not really she's not a writer by trade. Like her sentence structure, I'm like, Holly, have you heard of a comma? But her ideas are great. So basically we'll discuss the title and the story together, and then I'll write the mystery part, and then she'll contribute the 7 columns and recipes that we drop in throughout the book.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know, other than a few phone calls a month, we're never, collaborating in the same place at all. So
it doesn't look like this with both of us.
Exactly, which would be a lot of fun, by the way. But so we do it separately, but we check in with each other, once a week or so, and then if I have an issue with one of her columns, I'll call her and we'll work it out and all that.
Have you had an issue? What was the issue?
Oh no! Well, it's like sometimes she'll tell this. I'm like, Holly, I think you told this story back in Death of a Cupcake Queen 6 books ago. So she'll have to go back to the drawing board, but that's very rare.
Well, that makes me think as well, because writers are so different, and you're doing the Kitchen Diva books, and you're doing Poppy books, and you're doing other books. Several different cozy series. What is your day like?
Well, it's a lot. People make fun of me because they always think, I forget what's left brain, right brain. What's like creative is right brain.
Left is creative, I think.
Left creative. Yeah. I have a left brain career, but my brain is right brain. So I'm a constant scheduler. People make fun of me. Yeah. And so I know what chapter I'm going to be working on like months in advance.
You outline
the day I actually write it, So it's like it takes me about 4 months to write a draft, but then there's the 2 months before that I'm working on the outline. So, and then my outlines are chapters. So I know it's Wednesday. What is today? Wednesday the 31st. I wrote chapter 22 of Death of an Ice Cream Scooper, the new Hayley Powell book.
And yesterday you did 21.
And yesterday I did 21. And so I do about 3 to 4 chapters a week. And then in the afternoon after lunch, I will, after my Spanish class, I will work on the story or the outline of a future book. So right now I'm writing Death of an Ice Cream Scooper, and I'm outlining Murder on the Class Trip, which is the Mayan Sandra, the 3rd book in the Mayan Sandra series.
And what about Poppy?
Poppy, I literally just handed in Poppy Harmon and the Backstabbing Bachelor, and I just handed it in. He liked it. My editor liked it, so that was the best news I got this week. And that'll be out in May 2022, and that's the last on the contract. So if people want to see more, read the books, buy the book.
We need to start a petition. Because I love Poppy so much. And one of the reasons I love Poppy so much is that she has a setback at the beginning of the series. Mm-hmm. As you said, her husband dies and leaves her with nothing. And so what I love about the book and throughout all 3 is that she's continuing to sort of pull herself up by her bootstraps with her lifelong friends. Tell me about that journey for her.
Well, I've seen it. I've experienced it to a degree, not to the degree I went with Poppy, but where your career is peaks and valleys, and life in general is peaks and valleys, and there's so many people here in Palm Springs who have come here and they're going to live out their best days now. It's a really wonderful place to live when you're retired, especially.
So my tour guide told me, one of my tour guides said, Palm Springs is 90% gay men, 5% retirees, and 5% Manson people.
Yeah, that about sums it up. Yeah.
Like, Kevin?
Yeah, but so many people come here and they feel like they believe, they got their savings. They're like, this is where I'm going to live out my days and travel, and it's going to be. And I thought, what if something were to happen? What was if something blindsided you? What would you do? And in this case, she was an actress who hadn't worked in 30 years, and her husband leaves her penniless because of a gambling problem she knew nothing about. And what do you do? And that was what I found fun to explore, because she really had no skills. And I think there's a scene in the beginning of the first book where she decides to become a companion to this 90-year-old who turns out to be a nightmare and steals the car and all that. It's joyriding. And she knew that she wasn't cut out to do that. And so she couldn't make money acting, so she decides to use her skills from being on the TV show to become a detective. Plus, she reads all those mystery books and everything.
And always knows what's going to happen. And she had experience on a real detective show. She really kind of had those hours working with Delicious Sam.
Person. Well, the actor he's based on.
Yeah, I assume it's
Sam Elliott.
Yes, from and all I could think of was Sam Elliott from what's the last movie he was just nominated for? Star is Born. Star is Born.
Star is Born. Yes. Yeah. I was going to go one before that, but you're right. Star is Born. Yeah.
I was going back and forth between him, and sometimes I just pictured Mark Maron, who I have a little bit of a crush on.
Mark Maron. Oh, the comedian.
Yes, he's 58, so he's a little younger. But he's
it's funny. One of my writing partners and acting partners in the web show did his show. Mark Maron's show. And he loved him. He said he was great.
He has a new kitten that I look at. Very excited about Sammy the kitten. He lost 2 of his cats this year, and so
God.
And that Dynasty and Poppy are giving me joy this week. But yeah, so what I love is she's got this setback, but what you do so well, and I guess you've done since your 20s on the Golden Girls, is you show the strength of female friendships. Tell me where you have witnessed such bonds.
Well, I go back. My mom's a very strong role model for me. My grandmother, both of them actually, were very colorful characters, very outspoken. And I was 24 years old when I started writing on the Golden Girls. So it was very bizarre for someone that age to be writing for these mature women, but I just drew on the women in my life. And I was very fortunate to have a lot of strong, outspoken women around me when I was growing up, and especially my mom, who's still going strong today.
And she's read these, I'm sure.
Oh yes, yeah. She reads everything. She's great. So I think that's and I've always been drawn to female characters. Like if you go back through, I have a very schizophrenic career. I mean, I did Scooby-Doo animation, I did all sorts of stuff. But Barbershop, I know. I love that job. I love that job. But there's always strong female characters. I've always been and even when I would write kind of male-oriented shows like Wings, I would tend to gravitate toward the female characters in those shows.
Yes, and I think to myself, what I really love with this particular book is that Poppy starts acting again.
Mm-hmm.
After, like you say, a 30-year spell. 2 things. One, I love that she still has love for her dead husband, who did her so wrong. But she says, there's a moment in this book where she says, even though I didn't know what he was doing and I'm in the situation I am now, I would never have traded these 30 years. They've been wonderful years. And so, I think it's really easy to write bad marriages. And even with this setback, I see it as a good marriage. She still has love for him, and I appreciate that. Yeah. So as a reader, I love to see her sort of get her feet wet again. Can you personally think of, any moment where you've stopped doing something for a long period and then started it up again? And how did it go?
Wow, that's an interesting question, Helen.
I just thought of it. I don't know what you're gonna get.
Well, I have to say, maybe this is why I made Poppy an actress, and maybe this is why what happens in the new book is very early on. I'm a writer. I've always been a writer, but back in the 90s, I wrote a TV movie, a sci-fi comedy, and it was called Captain Zoom, and there was a character named Happy, and the whole thing was this planet in space, they were being attacked, and they pick up TV signals from a 1950s TV show, and they beam the star of the show to the planet to save them, thinking he's a hero, but he's really just an actor.
Who was it?
His name was Daniel. He killed Daniel Reardon. But we had like Nichelle Nichols from Star Trek in the movie. We had Ron Perlman. We had a bunch of famous actors. Yeah. And on Earth, he had the TV show. He had a sidekick named Happy who just had this giggle, and he just so they cast me. They go, Rick, you should do it. I'm like, I'm not an actor, and I'm like, you go, yeah, I did some high school plays. And then I was like, I don't know if I should do it, but then I did it and I loved it. And then I went on to do another series that we created, and I played a chef in like 7 episodes, and I just found this love of acting and I loved it. And then I just stopped. Then it just stopped. And the late 90s, like 97, 98, I never acted again.
Did you attempt to do it? Did you?
No, yeah. I just focused on my writing until about, I guess 8 years ago now, 2012, 7-8 years ago, and I was creating this web series to do with 2 friends, and there were 3 parts. It was like the Golden Girls with men, and they said, "Oh, you have to be the Blanche," and I'm like, "Oh, I don't know if I want to act again." And so, but they encouraged me to do it. And I was nervous because they're professional actors; they've been working for years and years, and I had only done just those few roles, and so I said yes, and then I did it for I've been doing it for the past 7 years. We finished in 2018, but we did 7 seasons, and now in certain bars across the world, I can go in and get a free drink.
Well, there's a great moment in the new book where, she begrudgingly agrees, for the case to step in and do this role. Oh, that was another good character. The director, Trent, I pictured as Quentin Tarantino, because Tarantino's always sort of resurrecting like Pam Grier, John resurrecting these 70s and 80s stars in his movies. And there's a great moment where it's a small part, but she gets on the set, and they're setting everything up, and there's this moment where she thinks, I don't remember anything. I'm gonna completely mess it up. And then they say action, and like some muscle memory clicks, and she realizes, oh, it's been there all along. I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
No, I had this, and that's from real experience. On the first day of the set back in 2012, I was like, I'm not going to be able to remember lines. I don't know. I haven't done this in so long. And then it just comes back to you, and it was the best decision I've ever made. I was in my late 40s when I made that decision to do it, because, as a writer, you don't necessarily get recognized, or people don't know, but after I did this, I mean, we got, I think, 50 million views on YouTube after a certain point, and so it's fun. I was in Paris, France, right before the pandemic, and I was in a bar, and some guy just walked up and said, "I love your writing." Now, he never would have known who I was if he hadn't seen me on that, but it was such a wonderful moment. I'm like, oh, it just meant so much, to be that far away from home, and he wasn't talking about the books. He was talking about the show because I wrote the
It
show.
still counts.
But it was just really, really that he was recognizing the writing and not the acting, which is probably something about my acting. But
well, yeah, I think to myself, I have moments where nobody ever recognized me as a writer, but I was at some, I had a huge like downswing. It was like 15 years between my first 2 books, and in that time I was playing. I'm a poker player, and Colson Whitehead, the writer, asked me to be his coach for his poker book. And so I was at some big literary party, and I was constantly being introduced as, oh, this is Colson Whitehead's poker coach. And I just thought, I'm good.
That's great.
Good.
By the way, this is totally off topic, but I love the title of your new book. I can't wait to read it.
Oh, thank you. Well, it was a last minute decision.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you. And the book is about, again, female friendships, which is like why I love this book. And like I say, I'm 50, and I like reading and watching, women who are a little bit older than me. But I mean, let's be honest. When I was 16, I liked watching, 4 women on a couch, the Golden Girls, and 4 other women on a couch designing women.
Exactly. Oh, I love designing women. Yeah.
I love it so much.
There was a rivalry between the Golden Girls writers and the designing women writers.
Tell me.
Well, it was mostly Linda Bloodworth Thomason, and so they would like back and forth a little bit. And the season I was there, I did not write this joke, but Sophia was the mother. Sophia was in the hospital, and the Arthur said, and they just wanted to give designing women a dig. So they had Sophia in the hospital bed, and B. Arthur says, "Oh, Ma, I hope you're going to make it. You have to make it." She goes, "Please, I've survived war, pestilence, and 4 seasons of designing women."
I always dreamed of like giving Delta Burke, another great Tarantino like role. I think she
needs to come back in some form. She still looks great. She still looks great. Yeah, she
looks great, and I think she really was she was my favorite by far. And it's nice to see Annie Potts. She still works.
Oh, she works constantly. Yeah.
Yes, she looks good. She looks very good, but she'll always.
And I didn't meet. What my biggest regret was I didn't meet her, but Jean Smart was in the Brady Bunch movie. And I wasn't there any of the days that she shot, and I missed my chance to meet her.
Isn't she doing interesting work now? She really is. What is that? She's even doing animated. What is it? Big Mouth. She plays like the depression kitty.
And she was in the Regina King HBO.
Yes. Mask, everything. It's nominated for everything. What is it? Watchmen.
Oh, Watchmen. That's the name.
I use my brain.
Yeah. I'm awful. It's gone. It's just like
well, what, and again, I think about Poppy, and, I'm watching Dynasty now. So I'm watching a bunch of middle-aged, well, that's who I'm watching, the middle-aged folks roll around in bed and solve mysteries and get into trouble, but there's not a lot out there. What are you watching, or what are you reading for inspiration?
Sadly, I've been asked this question, and nothing current. Like when the pandemic hit and I was kind of stuck at home, it was my excuse to go back and rewatch every 1970s detective show.
What
like Macmillan and Wife, Rockford Files, all of them, Columbo. And then Mod Squad. I did a whole Mod Squad marathon.
Kojak.
I love Kojak. But all of those.
My just said he wants to watch it.
I think when you watch something as a child, it has a deeper meaning for you than something you watch as an adult. I don't know what that is, but for me, I identify so much more. I always said, if I met the biggest star in Hollywood, like when at the time it was Julia Roberts at the time or whatever, I would be, oh, that's nice. But if I met like,
Delta Burke
Smith, or anybody from my child, Susan St. James, I would go nuts. It was it just has a deeper resonance when you're a child.
It does. And I find myself, again, I think that's one of the reasons I really love the series. And I read the whole series during quarantine because there's so many references to the 80s and sort of the lifestyle and the TV shows. And what I like is you don't explain the 80s TV shows. You just drop them. And if somebody wants to know, if they don't know, but I know, but if they don't know, look it up. And what I think is so comforting is it just brings me back to being that age and, getting to watch Moonlighting, getting to watch Remington Steele, getting to watch Hotel, these sort of very adult, fabulous shows. So I just love the series so much.
Oh, thank you, Helen. That means so much. I can't tell you.
And I think we have been talking for 50 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't look at my notes and I can't believe that. But I knew we were going to have fun.
Oh.
One of the things that I love that you guys have really touched on, am I mute? Can you hear me?
Nope, we can hear
you.
Okay. One of the things that I love so much that you guys touched on is, and one of the things so we just started this, which I didn't mention at the beginning, we just started this subscription cozy box, also in large part because of Helen. I've been sending her a cozy a month for a couple of years now, and we finally decided to take it bigger. But one of the things, we have a regular customer who's never read them before and wanted to know more about them. And one of the things that I think cozies do so well is they're able to create these friendships between characters and these relationships between the people in these towns and stuff like that. Or also, they're able to tackle issues like the Me Too movement and do it in a way that is still fun and still light and can still have resonance. And I'm so glad that you guys touched on that because it's all the things that I love about cozy mysteries.
Well, I'm going to have to quote you, Rick. I did write down, there's this great moment where Sam, who's the detective, says that he had been offered the chance to go and be a consultant on a series. And he says he's not going to go because, quote, it's another serial killer show where they just try to come up with the most grotesque, gruesome ways to kill people and shock the audience. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
So Bryce mentioned in the comments that he wants the two of you to go on tour so we can pay to listen to your conversations. So
I would love it. We could call it the two new best friends tour.
Yeah. Well, my sister is in Pasadena, and as of last year, because I saw her first, and then I had someone drive me because I've been in the city for 30 years. And I don't drive anyway to Palm Springs, and I said to my sister, I'm never going to see you again without scheduling time to go to Palm Springs because I just love it so much.
Well, you cannot come here without letting me know.
I want to meet the other ladies. All I want is just to hold court in a room with your friends. That's all I want. I want to be that lady.
So Tricia says or asks, she said that Helen mentioned playing online poker. So Rick, what is the best guilty pleasure that you've given one of your characters?
Ooh, that's a good question.
One of the characters, I was going to say about me, which is mostly eating. Gosh, that's a stumper. Oh gosh. Well, Hayley in the Hayley Powell books, she does it was supposed to be it was a food columnist, but she likes her cocktails so much that we had to add cocktails because my sister's constantly coming up with new recipes for different cocktails. So I think her guilty pleasure is tipping. And we've even been called out on Amazon. There was one review. This woman needs help.
So Renee wants to know if you could pick one of your own books to be adapted to film or TV, which book and who would you want for your lead actors for both of y'all? So
I already asked Mark Maron and yours. I want Mark Maron, and I want I'm gonna make sure I say the name right because it's when I first read the book, I pictured this actress. Her name is Susan Yeagley, and she was on Parks and Rec as like the sugar factory, blonde. I think she's too young. I think she's 50, but I totally pictured her as Poppy. So I want her and Mark Maron.
Oh. What about your book? What about your book?
For me, well, let me think. Well, if I was to adapt the very first book, Eating the Cheshire Cat, like I said before, I just want to give Delta Burke a role, and I want to give Sharon Stone a role. Did you see Ratchet?
Yes.
Sharon Stone stole that show. I want to be her. I want to have a movie. I love her, and I'm listening to her audiobook that just came out.
Oh yeah, it just came out this week. Yeah.
I have to tell you, it's pretty good. Pretty good.
And how about you, Rick?
Gosh, I'd love any of them, but it's the one of the third series, the Mayan Sandra mysteries, which is about a wife of a senator and a private eye who team up. They're like soccer moms. That whole idea came from a pilot I created 15 years ago. They got shot for ABC called Soccer Moms, and it actually was cast, and it had Kristen Davis from Sex and the City.
Yes.
And so whenever I'm writing the Mayan Sandra books, when I'm writing Sandra, all I can think of is Kristen Davis now, and the other character played by Gina Torres. I don't know if you know her.
Tell me a reference point.
She's married to Lawrence Fishburne.
Oh yes, all right. There it is.
She was in Suits, a show called Suits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Meghan.
Yes, with Meghan Markle.
Did you want Meghan?
Larissa. Hi, Larissa. Thanks. So Larissa is watching. Larissa is Lee's publicist who helped us get this set up and has helped us set up so many of the fun, cozy things that we've done. She says, you're such a pop culture aficionado. If you could only pick one 80s TV drama to suggest we watch, which one would you choose?
80s, okay, because 70s I would be. 80s, I would say a drama. So it would have to be a drama. I don't know. I mean, no, Melrose Place was the 90s. I think we've already named it. I think it's Dynasty.
I am telling you.
I mean, it had everything. Anyone wants camp and drama and
it is heaven.
Fights in the lily pond,
I'm only in season 3, so don't tell me anything. But
so they haven't even started their fights yet.
They had the first. Everybody fights everybody to begin with. But Alexis and Crystal had their first fight in the artist studio.
Oh, yes.
And control top pantyhose were exposed, and feather pillows were ripped up. But I love it because everybody fights everyone. I'm gonna punch you on a horseback. I'm gonna punch you in the hospital. I'm gonna punch you while I'm getting a maternity test. If you have a problem, you just punch somebody.
Oh, I have a Dynasty story I forgot to tell real quick. I
Tell
know.
me.
But my favorite Hollywood moment was I was working on this terrible sitcom years ago called Rhythm and Blues. It was awful. But we had one of the young writers was this woman named Suzanne Kay, and her mother was Diane Carroll.
Oh.
And I, of course, Dominique Devereaux from Dynasty. I was like,
I haven't got there yet.
No, I haven't got there, but she's fabulous in it.
Yes.
And so she showed up to Suzanne's taping of her episode, and she brought her in, and she was like, hi, I want you to meet my mom. And I'm like, it's so nice to meet you, Dominique. And I know. She was great. She was lovely. She didn't correct me or anything.
That's
So Jay wants to know, Rick, if they haven't already, do you have any plans for any of the characters from all of your series to like jump from series to series or connect and create like a shared world?
It's happened once so far, and actually, it's in the book. It's either it's the one Death of a Wicked Witch, the Hayley Powell mystery series, just came out last year. Maya and Sandra make an appearance in Death of a Wicked Witch because they're based in Portland, Maine, and Hayley's in Bar Harbor, Maine, and they go to Portland and they run into each other. So yeah, I did I love those kind of things.
I love that. I love it.
Helen, you talked a little bit about it before we head out tonight, though. Can you tell everybody a little bit about your upcoming book?
Oh my goodness. So the new book is called Bring Your Baggage and Don't Pack Light. And it's another collection of true stories, this time focusing on lifetime friendships. So, I'm going to take you to a water park. I'm going to take you to my friend's bedside as she has a baby at 50 years old. I'm gonna take you to some parties, and I'm going to take you with me when I get 60 injections of stomach bile to get rid of my double chin. It's fun. It's gonna be fun. It's gone. It's under there, but it's gone.
I can't wait.
It's so good. Like I've been a big fan of Helen's since the first collection came out. They're all great. This one's absolutely wonderful too. I can't wait for everybody to get to read it. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be sending Helen some books when it comes out. So if you guys want to pre-order personalized copies, you can do that. I've dropped the link in the comments. And Rick, you told us already, but can you remind us what you have coming up next?
Yes, coming up next is Death of an Italian Chef, which is the next Hayley Powell mystery, and that's coming in June. And then August, we have a new collection with Leslie Meyer and Barbara Ross called The Halloween Party Murder. And then Murder at the Bake Sale, the second Mayan Sandra. It's available at Barnes & Noble now, but it opens wide to everybody. They should order it from Murder by the Book in November.
I'm so excited. What's that, Helen?
To pick our winner.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay,
I already know who it is.
Okay, so who is it?
Well, it's a tie, but it's a tie. So they're both going to get one. First of all, I just like a lady named Trish. So Trisha is going to get it because I like any lady named Trish. And the second was whoever got us to mention Dynasty, but I think it was your publicist.
Yeah.
So she wanted me to have one.
You probably can get a copy of the book.
That was a good question. So Trish is going to she either gets the first book or the new book. And you really don't, I love the first two books, but you do a good job of, giving us backstory in the new book. So you don't necessarily have to have read the other two. So that's Trish's choice. It should be the name of the next novel.
So Trisha, just email us. You've got our email address. So just shoot us an email and we'll get in touch with you. And thank you, Helen. Actually, I was about to ask Rick whether he thought people needed to start with the first book or if they could jump in with the new one. So
I'll leave that to Helen.
Not at all. But you really should buy all three.
Oh yeah, I mean they're all so good, and they've like Helen, I've kind of read them all throughout quarantine, and they've just been, I mean, they're so much fun. Like you said, they're cozy, but they've got some meat to them, which is what I always look for in cozies, and they're just so much fun. Like everything that you guys have talked about, whether it's been Golden Girls or Dynasty or Designing Women, there are all of these flavors of it in there, and it's so much fun. Like I spent so much time when I was younger, when I would spend time with my grandparents, there was always like Murder, She Wrote was on,
yes.
or, Diagnosis, or like all of those great detective shows. So like I had all these references for, Poppy being on these shows as a secretary in the 80s and stuff. So they're just so much fun. And like Helen and I have both said, I think that this new one, Poppy Harmon and the Pillow Talk Killer, has been my favorite of the three. And I already loved the other two, but like this one was so great too.
Well, again, I love every character. I'm happy to see every character, and you are continuing to, develop them in such nice ways. Like I said, I think I said it before we went on the call. Violet gets a bow, which I think should have been the subtitle of the book. Delighted.
So before we head out tonight, I wanted to mention, like I briefly mentioned, we do have the Cozy subscription box. So if anybody is interested in that, basically it's curated by me. I pick out a cozy mystery every month, and you can either pick them up or we can mail them, and we have them available in 3 or 12-month increments. So
you must do it. It's the best thing ever. Like I say, it used to be just for me and my sister and my mother and 2 other friends. And it's the best way because John really knows the cozies. He loves them, and he always gives something new. And they all don't have a cat on the cover.
Nope. And if you are cozy fans, once we are done with this chat, Facebook and YouTube will archive it. But if you go back to rewatch it, I've created an entire playlist on YouTube that has all of the cozy events that we've done since the pandemic started, including the Kensington road trip one that we did. And also wanted to mention, so Kensington is working on doing their cozy cons, which they do them kind of all across the country. So they're working on doing them virtually. And we are going to be hosting one in June. So everybody should keep an eye out for that. We'll have 2 different panels. I think we've almost got everything confirmed. So we're super excited about that. It's so funny, my husband jokes all the time, like I did not realize that like my Murder by the Book brand would be the cozy guy. Like when I first started working in the store, like I hadn't read them. I picked one up and have just loved them. And it's so funny that that's just become like the thing that I'm known for at the bookstore now. And it just makes me so happy because there are so many good ones out there.
Oh, that's great.
And they come out so quickly. And what I loved about, I watched your last, the Kensington road trip that you were on, Rick. And what's the name of the writer? Death of a Busybody. Who's that writer?
Barbara Ross.
No, say it again.
Barbara Ross.
Barbara Ross.
Yeah,
Barbara Ross.
I love that first book. Again, fun at a retirement village.
Yeah.
But I discovered the Amish writer who has 2 goats. And I found it very enjoyable. It's all about like, where is the body?
It's been one of the nice things about the pandemic, and we've talked about this. A lot of the cozy events that we've done, they have some of the best viewership, and I think it's because because most cozies, when they come out, they're mass markets, so there isn't a huge publicity budget to tour, so they'll do like local stuff, but people don't necessarily get to see those authors. And the road trip event was so fun because Larissa at Kensington was like, hey, we want to do this, and I was just like, I just read the first Poppy Harmon book. I loved it. I just read this Barbara Ross book. I had read Julie Ann Lindsay's, and she was like, oh, these all have kind of older sleuths in them. Here's your theme. Let's add in M.V. Byrne for Isabel Puddles and also Amanda Flower. So I get to discover theirs too. So it's been really fun to be able to do some stuff like this and kind of bring cozy authors to people and do really great pairings like this that we might not get to do in the store. But tonight has just been an absolute blast.
It's been the thrill for me. It really.
I've had a blast. I just had so much fun, but I can't wait to come and do an in-person event in Houston.
Definitely.
I'm telling you.
Awesome. So once again, just to recap before we head out, we've been talking with Lee Hollis, whose 3rd book in the Poppy Harmon series, Poppy Harmon and the Pillow Talk Killer, just came out Tuesday. We've got copies of it and the other ones, and as well as Lee/Rick's other books in this other series too, so you can order those from us at murderbooks.com or give us a call. And Helen Ellis has been gracious enough to give us some time this evening, and her upcoming book, Bring Your Baggage and Don't Pack Light, will be out later this summer. So everybody take care. Thank you so much, and we will see you soon.
Bye. Thank you, John. Thank you, Helen. Bye-bye.